Now, after 10 years in San Diego, I've learned this one thing. This place isn't what you might think. Behind the beaches and sunshine are microclimates, strange transit stats, and neighborhoods that feel like different cities altogether. Now, don't get me wrong, some of it's amazing, some not so much, but if you're planning to move here, you'll want the full picture. Let me show you the San Diego locals actually talk about. Okay, so let's kick things off with something everyone talks about, which is, of course, the weather. Check this out. Over at Mission Bay, for example, it might be a perfect 71 degrees, but just 3 miles inland along the 5 freeway, it can jump to 91 degrees. That's a 20-degree difference in practically the same area. Crazy, right? But that's just part of life in San Diego. Now, the National Weather Service actually documented this crazy temperature swing on October 24th, 2019. It's not just some random thing people talk about. It's officially measured. This may have been a bit of an extreme example, but this temperature variation happens frequently here in San Diego. And even though we're in Southern California, San Diego rarely gets truly hot. Only 25 days a year go over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which surprises a lot of people who move here expecting constant heat all year round. We do have 344 days warmer than 60 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's almost never cold. It's this weird sweet spot that messes with your expectations. May gray and June gloom are real things though. Those marine layers roll in and tourists freak out, myself included. I can't tell you how many times I've had out-of-town friends visit in June who packed nothing but shorts and tank tops, then ended up borrowing my sweatshirts because they're freezing at the beach until noon. So I literally keep a hoodie in my car pretty much all year round because you never know when you'll drive into a totally different climate zone. And let me tell you about these Santa Ana winds for a second. They will literally knock your socks off. They hit 35 to 50 knots regularly, sometimes even 60 to 100 knots in certain spots. That's almost like hurricane force winds in some areas. These aren't exactly gentle breezes. So we have this unique weather phenomenon, and it shapes how we live here in ways you may not expect. People who've been here a while actually plan their entire day around these microclimates. And as we'll talk about later, this weather planning becomes second nature to locals, almost like a sixth sense you develop. But those wild weather swings aren't even the most surprising part of living here. Now let's talk about something that hits all of us where it counts, our wallets. It's one of the things that really caught me off guard after moving to San Diego, and even more so in the last 5 years. First, if we haven't met yet, my name is Bern McGovern with the Off to 56 home team here in San Diego. If you're still watching, hopefully you're enjoying the content, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You'll get more insider info on San Diego that you really won't find anywhere else. All right, let's be honest, San Diego isn't cheap, but there's more to it than just expensive California. Take SDG&E, for example. Their electricity rates are some of the highest in the country and even the world. Our electricity runs an average of 47.7 cents per kilowatt, one of the highest rates for any major utility in the United States, and higher than most countries globally. Pretty crazy, right? If SDG were a country, it would rank in the top 5 in electricity rates worldwide, and that is no exaggeration. Summer bills here could easily hit $600 for an average-sized home. It's a shock to anyone not used to San Diego's high utility costs. And don't get me started on water bills. Rates jumped 5% last December, another 5.2% in July, and there's an 8.7% hike that came in January. That's a total increase of about 20% in just over a year. Every time I open that bill, it's just another surprise. And housing, well, a typical home here runs about $848,000 with mortgage payments around $3,100 a month. That's the median, which means half the homes cost way more than that. Renters aren't escaping either. Median rents hit $2,223 monthly. Now, when people tell me they're moving here with a budget of about $1,500 for rent, I have to break it to them gently. They'll need roommates or a serious adjustment to their expectations. But, and this is a big but, a typical household here makes $104,000 as of last year, up almost 6% from 2022. The income levels here are way higher than national averages, which kind of explains how people can afford all this stuff. And get this, nearly 45% of San Diegans over 25 have a bachelor's degree, well above the national average of about 34%. We've got a well-educated workforce earning solid paychecks here in San Diego. It's pretty wild. We've got super high costs, but also super high incomes. You'll never feel so broke while making 6 figures anywhere else. Some people earning $150K a year can still have roommates because they want to live in certain coastal neighborhoods, and that's crazy to think about. So this creates these weird economic zones throughout the county. You can literally drop 20 minutes east and home prices drop by 30 to 40%. People make these complex calculations about commute times versus housing costs versus lifestyle preferences. And that transit system we'll talk about in a bit. While San Diego's public transit isn't as extensive in some other big cities, it's become crucial for some families trying to balance these high housing costs with actually enjoying life here. But all these economic realities totally shape who can actually live here, which leads to some pretty surprising stuff about your neighbors in San Diego. Another thing that really surprised me about San Diego is the demographic mix. Take Convoy, for example, one of the best spots in the city for incredible food. And this is just one example of the amazing diversity here that most people don't expect when they picture a typical beach town in California. San Diego has around 1.4 million people in the city, making it the 8th largest city in the United States, and that catches a lot of people off guard. Sure, it feels laid back, but make no mistake, we're a major metro area that still manages to keep a neighborhood vibe, at least for the most part. But let me say this, San Diego is getting older too. Median age hit 37.3 in 2022, up 7% in just a decade. I know it's funny, everyone pictures young surfers, but we're actually trending older than a lot of other cities right now. We're still a bit younger than the national average of 38.9, but that gap is closing quickly. The reality is that we have plenty of college students and young professionals. We've also got a ton of established families and retirees who love it here. And get this, 1 in 4 San Diegans were born in another country. Almost 40% of people speaking something besides English at home. So you can meet people that speak Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin. The cultural exposure is pretty awesome here in San Diego. We're also super diverse, about 41% white, 17% Asian, 6% black, 6% multiracial, and 32% Hispanic. These stats completely contradict the stereotypical image many people have of San Diego. The cultural mix varies neighborhood by neighborhood, creating these amazing pockets of authentic international communities. And as I'll show you when we talk about lifestyle later, this diversity creates these distinct neighborhood identities that locals become super attached to. And we're super tech savvy too. 97% of homes have computers, 95% have broadband. That's way higher than the national averages. And the tech industry has a big presence here, with biotech especially booming in areas like Sorrento Valley. This isn't just a beach town, it's a serious innovation hub. But with all these different people spread across a pretty huge county, how we get around might be the biggest shocker of all. Alright, so San Diego has the second highest light rail ridership in California, and it's among the top 5 in the country, which I actually was a little surprised by. Not exactly what comes to mind when you picture Southern California, right? Transit in San Diego is busier than you might think. Every weekday, about 130,000 people rely on the bus and trolley system, and ridership is growing fast. In fact, 2023 saw a major jump with tens of millions of trips taken across the county. The trolley system is especially popular, and the bus lines continue to see a boost in use. So this completely contradicts that everyone drives in California stereotype. Now, don't get me wrong, plenty of people still drive here, but our public transit system is surprisingly robust and getting better. But I must admit, I don't take it a lot as I live in the suburbs. And get this, kid ridership jumped almost 23% with that free Youth Pronto program. Over 113,000 different youth cards were used throughout the system. This is creating a generation that's comfortable using public transit, which hasn't really happened here in San Diego in quite some time, which is pretty unusual for Southern California. Plus, ever notice how the trolley cars are packed during Comic-Con? That's actually how they look most weekdays now, too. The expansion of the system has made it genuinely useful for daily commutes, not just special events. Now, the average commute time here is about 25 minutes, which is way better than most big cities. LA averages about 30 minutes for comparison. Our traffic can still be rough, especially on the 5 and the 805 during rush hour, but it's manageable compared to other major metro areas. The transportation situation here creates these interesting lifestyle patterns. People who live along the transit lines often have completely different daily routines than those live in car-dependent neighborhoods like myself. Some families can get by with 1 car instead of 2 because of the trolley access, which helps offset those high housing costs we talked about earlier. Remember those $3,000 monthly mortgage payments? Saving on a second car payment can make a huge difference for many. But beyond all these stats and facts, there's something else about living in San Diego that really threw me for a loop over the years. Sunset Cliffs, absolutely stunning, right? But here's the funny thing, most locals rarely hang out at spots like this. The day-to-day San Diego experience is way different from what visitors picture. Because let's be real, traffic's a little bit of a hassle. Some people in North Park haven't been to La Jolla in years, even though it's less than 10 miles away. That's just how it goes. You settle into your neighborhood, build routines, and end up staying close to home. I've been to the same tavern by my house probably 50 times over the last year. Now, what about the beach? Lots of locals go maybe 3 to 4 times a year. We probably go about 8 to 10 times a year because I got little kids and we only live 15 minutes away. You get busy with life, work, kids, and somehow those postcard experiences become things you should do sometime rather than regular activities. Now, neighborhood identity is pretty huge here. North Park people versus La Jolla people versus East County folks. There are definitely stereotypes about each area, and people tend to find the spot that matches their vibe. Hipsters in North Park, surfers in PB, families in Scripps Ranch, outdoorsy types in East County. Remember that diversity I mentioned earlier? It really plays out in these distinct neighborhoods. You plan your entire day around marine layers and microclimate patterns after living here for a while. Let's do the zoo in the morning when it's cooler, then hit Coronado in the afternoon when the sun comes out. Locals develop the sixth sense about which parts of the county will have the best weather at different times of day. Those 20-degree temperature differences I showed you in the beginning, they influence literally every plan you make here in San Diego. But we've all got our secret spots to avoid tourists on weekends. I lived here for 2 years before I actually went down to the Gaslamp Quarter. Locals just don't hang out there. You can find these little neighborhood spots tourists never go to. That's the real San Diego imagine. The other thing that's fascinating is how the city changes seasonally in ways that visitors never see. Summer brings the tourist crowds and completely different energy to certain areas. Fall is when locals reclaim their beaches. Winter has its own charm with holiday celebrations that blend unique Southern California traditions with typical seasonal activities, like ice skating rinks set up next to palm trees or on the beach. So there's a whole rhythm to San Diego life that takes you years to figure out. I'm still doing it. Which weekend farmers markets have the best selection? Which coffee shops have the local vibe versus the tourist traps? Where to park when there's a Padres game? That's my little secret. These little life hacks that make day-to-day life here much easier. There's this weird contradiction where sometimes the most San Diego experiences happen in the most unexpected places. Some random taco shop in a strip mall might be way better food than the fancy waterfront restaurants we have here in San Diego. A hidden trail in a suburban neighborhood might give you way better views than the famous tourist lookouts. And honestly, that's what I love most about this city. Even after 10 years of exploring nearly every neighborhood in the county, I'm still finding new things that amaze me. All right, well, that's a wrap. Bottom line, from those wild 20-degree temperature swings to our surprisingly awesome public transit, San Diego's way more complex than those perfect beach shots let on. It's got challenges for sure, don't get me wrong, but man, there's a reason we all put up with those high electricity bills. These surprises aren't necessarily good or bad. I mean, some of them are bad. They're just the reality of living in this unique place. Understanding them helps you make better decisions about where to live within the county and what lifestyle to expect. And if you're thinking about whether moving to San Diego is right for you, I can help. Don't wait and send me an email at burn@off-to56.com and let's talk about your ideas and how to make it happen. You'll also find my contact info in the description below. And before you go, if you want to do more research, check out this video linked right here where I explain why so many people from San Francisco and LA are moving to San Diego. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.